Hi guys, it's Professor Barker. I wanted to take a minute and work with you on setting up a document and organizing layers into folders. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to do that. As you can see, I have Photoshop CC 2019 up and running. This will work with later versions and earlier versions of Photoshop, so feel free to work along with me. When you first open Photoshop, you'll see this dashboard. Now, you may see images here, or you may see just a list. You get to a different position by clicking on one of the two icons over here on the right-hand side. Okay? This part doesn't matter. It's just whatever you prefer. So don't let it throw you off when you see something a little different on my screen than you may see on your screen. Where we're going to start today is over on the left-hand side. Find the button that says Create New and click it. The New Document dialog box opens up. We will be using a web format. We tend to use this web format because we are, after all, web majors. If you are doing something that is more artistically inclined, like working with photography or working with graphic design, that's when you'll change this to a different thing, a different preset. What happens for us as web design majors is over here on the right hand side. The main thing you'll see is that the resolution is now set down to 72 rather than being at 300 pixels per inch. 300 pixels per inch is really fantastic for working with in-depth graphics and in-depth photography. However, for web production, we want that number to be down to 72. And the reason is that we are trying to make something upload to the internet just as quickly as possible. So keep this in mind. When you create art, do it in 300. When you deliver it to the web, you're going to do it in 72. For us today, we're just going to work in 72. Go ahead and click Create. And let's draw a few things out on our artboard. The artboard is the canvas that you see here. That is your main working area. Make sure that you can see the layers panel, and down below it will also show you the artboards. We have one layer currently created. Let's just put a few things out there so that we can have multiple layers. Go over to your tools bar on the left hand side. Your tools may look like this or like this. I like this layout because it just makes it a little bit more sense to me. I'm used to it. Use whatever feels good to you. Come down to the rectangle tool and click one time. Let's click on set the foreground color, and it is going to bring up the color picker. And you can choose different hues. This is what the H stands for: hues, saturation, and brightness. And then down below is RGB. You've heard about the RGB color space, having worked in web, I'm sure. We'll come to that and talk about that a little bit later in class as well. For now, just pick a color that makes you happy. I love blue, so I'm going to make this a blue square. Let's go up here and check the fill and the stroke. I can see that the stroke has a dark black outline. I don't want any stroke, so I'm going to turn that off. Go to where it says fill, and let's make sure that that has that lovely blue that you just selected, or whatever color you just selected, and just draw it out on your screen. There's your very first rectangle. Now, come down to your layers panel. I want you to click in there and come down to where it says at the very bottom, create a new layer. Click that one time. That will give you a new opportunity to draw out another shape. I am deliberately choosing a separate layer rather than trying to draw out multiple rectangles on the same layer for the demonstration purposes we need today. Okay, now I'm going to choose a different shape just because we can and because you guys need to see how to do this. If you click on the rectangle tool, click and hold, you can come over and choose something different. So I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. Let's choose a new color by going up to this swatch, and I'm going to go back into the colors by clicking on the multiple colors there. Oh, I think I'm in the mood for yellow. Let's do a nice cheery yellow, and I'm going to draw this out. If you hold down your Shift key, then click and drag, it will draw out a perfect circle for you. Okay, let's do one more just for grins. Let's create one more layer. And this time I'm going to use the polygon tool because that just sounds like fun. I can see up here my sides have been set to 3. Let's do something different. I'm going to set it to 6. And again, I'm going to choose a different fill color. Let's see, what will go with blue and yellow? How about a green? That's good enough. It is not perfect. Okay, so once again, I'm going to hold down my Shift key to constrain my object and just simply drag it out. Now this guy's a little close to my blue rectangle there, so I'm going to select my Move tool. You do that by coming up here to the Move icon, or you can use your keyboard shortcut, which is the letter V. Go ahead and press the letter V. And let's just simply move this to a different location on the screen. Now we have 3 layers. Let's take a look at how to reorder these things. If you watch this, I'm going to drag this layer on top of my blue layer. But what if I want this green hexagon to appear behind the blue rectangle? Well, that's really easy. All you need to do is go over here to your artboard, look for the polygon layer, and look for the rectangle layer. To get that effect, click and hold on the polygon layer and simply drag it down where you see the blue line, highlight, and go right beneath the rectangle. In theory, that should work perfectly. There it is. I had to do it again. Okay, look how your artwork has changed on your canvas. The blue rectangle is now on top of the green hexagon. That is called reordering your layers. You can do it with whatever you wish, and it doesn't matter. It is all good. By the way, when you're working in the Move tool, if you cannot pick it up and move it just by clicking and dragging, come up here to where it says Auto Select and make sure that that is turned on. There are times you're going to want the Auto Select turned on, and then there are times you're going to want the Auto Select turned off. In this case, for me, it was helpful. But just know that you have that option to be able to do have a little more control over what that does. Okay, so if you wish, you can always reorder these in any way you want and stack them differently. Okay, that's a little bit about how to work with your layers. Oh, and by the way, you can always delete any layer that you wish by hitting the trash can. I'm going to leave these 3 on the stage for now. The next thing I wanted to show you about the layers panel is how to work with folders. And just like what you have in real life, folders are an easy way of keeping all these kinds of different things inside of it. In real life, you would keep papers inside of your working folder. In Photoshop, we are going to keep layers inside something called the working folder. Folders can be created by coming down to this folder icon. It's also known as grouping. Click on it. You'll see that the group comes up above the artboard. I don't like that, so I'm going to just drag it down. And if you want to put 2 of these items in there, we're going to click one time and drag, and then click another time and drag, though you can certainly shift click and get the same effect. Now that changed my ordering, but that's okay. The beauty of having a group is that you can move these around on your stage without a problem. Now I am going to go up and turn off my auto select for this, because otherwise it would just drill down and give me the one object that I click on. I want to move 2 things, so I turn off my auto select, and now I can move these around the screen without a problem. And notice the difference between clicking on the group and clicking on one particular item. Okay, so watch it again. I'm going to click on the group. There you go. I'm going to click on just a polygon. There it is. So Putting things in groups give you a very logical way of putting things together and also manipulating them on a larger scale, like moving a lot of things around on your canvas. It also helps you to understand how things are organized inside of your layers panel. An organization can be very, very huge when you're working with big files, like you've got thousands of layers. So I would strongly suggest putting things into groups, otherwise known as folders. You can rename your groups and you can rename your layers. Simply double click and let's say first group. That is just fine. Down here, let's work on changing a different name for this circle. Double click on your ellipse 1, just on the text, and let's call that yellow circle. Just makes it a little more easy to understand. Now rectangle 1, I'm going to double click on that and let's call that blue rectangle. Polygon 1 is going to become green hexagon. I strongly suggest to all my students that you name your layers and your groups logically. If you think about this, you may come back to this file a year later, 5 years later, whatever, and you won't know exactly what you did at that time unless you give it a really logical name. So get in the habit of making things make sense now. And then when you come back down the road, it'll be much easier to find what you want to work with. Okay, guys, that is how you work with layers and with folders. I will see you in the next movie.